Hey guys, welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Melody and I love all things that have to do with makeup, especially eyeshadows, and indie eyeshadows have a special place in my heart, so you'll see a lot of those on my channel. Today I'm going to do an in-depth review of the Agate Temptation palette by Singe Beauty. So this one's been out for about, I want to say about 2 months maybe. It has such a beautiful color story. There's not a lot of palettes that you see with all of these colors in one palette. But today we're going to go through this palette in depth. You know how I feel about first impressions. I don't think they're very helpful. So before I do my reviews, I make sure to have used the palette lots of different times so that I have helpful critiques about all the shades in the palette, as well as the goods and the not so good things about it. So I'm just going to prep my eyes and I'll be right back so you can dig into this one. Alright, so I've gone ahead and primed my lids. I'm going to start by taking the color, I'm going to probably mispronounce this, I think it's called Agate, and this is like it's actually pretty close. I mean, in person it looks a lot like the Singe color, but a little bit more orange. And I'm going to take that up on the crease of the outer half of the lid. So as I've been using this palette, I have been able to make very creative, like outside of the box type of looks. I'm very happy with how they've all turned out, and I feel like there's enough of a range in the color depth in this palette that you can end up with very different looks from one another. All of the colors here are really pigmented, so even the lightest color, which is like a minty, it's called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, chalcedony? That doesn't feel right, but that minty color, which we will be using later today as well, it's very pigmented, and I feel like a lot of the times with these like pastel shades, this one here, sometimes they don't show up well on the skin. They require white base, so that's not the case with this one. Okay, now I'm going to take a smaller brush and I'm going to go into this bright lime green shade called Banded. And I'm going to apply this in the crease as well, but of the inner portion of my eye space. I feel like the color story is, like I mentioned, it's pretty unique. You don't see a lot of palettes with these colors all together. In a way, it feels like two palettes in one, but they've done it in such a way that it works together. So I'm actually going to be using one of my favorite shades of this palette. They're all very easy to work with. I didn't really experience a significant amount of fallout. And what I'm going to do is with the same brush, I'm going to go into the shade called Geode, which is the green one. And I'm going to put that on just in the inner corner of the lid, just a tiny bit to deepen that up a bit. It is very pigmented, as you can see, so a little bit will go a very long way. And because I want to tone it down just a tiny bit, I'm going to go back over top of it with that same lime green shade, as well as to blend the edges of it. So I think I mentioned this before, but I feel like all my not my best looks, but the looks that I'm most comfortable with end up being like a halo eye look. And that's okay, just because I feel like that's what complements my eye shape the best. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with the shade, oh gosh, I can't pronounce any of these. It's called Dendritic. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these, okay? I'm not a geologist. I'm no expert in agate slabs or however you pronounce them. But I'm basically taking this like deep plum and I'm going to apply that to the outer corner of my eye to provide some depth for that orange shade as well. So spoiler alert, this is kind of like a halo eye that I'm going to do today. Sort of. And then again, I'm just going to take some more and apply it to the other side. Something that I really admire about how Angela does her makeup is that she is really good at putting colors together. Like this deep plum, for example, it's next to that like orangey yellow color. And you would think that I put another color in between them, but I haven't. It's just because of the base of what's in the plum that it works really well with colors that you wouldn't necessarily think to put together right away. I'm just going to build this up a little bit on the outer corner. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take another brush because this one has that plum color. This is the Singe E.l.f, so it's just a fluffy, pretty tapered blending brush. I'm going to go into the shade Volcanic, and I'm going to take the tiniest bit. And I'm actually going to bring that upwards a little bit here. And I barely grabbed any, but it has a lot of pigment. I'm going to do the same to the other side. And then afterwards, I'm going to take some of that yellow mustard, not yellow mustard, the yellow orange color. And I'm going to blend that on the outer edges of this color here. Wow, I feel like I accidentally, I'm creating like a rainbow, but in a good way. Okay, so now I'm going to take that shade Agate, and I'm going to blend it on the outer corner of that pinkish shade towards that green that we had before. So this is a really colorful palette. I think what really attracted me to it was the murky greens on the top right hand side of it. I'm a sucker for those grungy colors, so if I see that in a palette, I'm probably 8 out of 10 times going to try to get it if I can. But this one's interesting because it does have the murky tones along with like very bright neon type colors, because you guys saw Bandit, it is pretty bright, but when I put it over top of Geode here in the inner corner, I feel like it made Geode even like pop a little bit more, so it looks even brighter still. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another brush. Now this is going to be a flat one. This is the E.l.f. again from Singe. I'm going to take that shade Agate. I don't know how to pronounce it, guys. I'm so sorry. And I'm going to apply it going towards the inner, like the center of the lid, to blend that purple. So just on the edge towards the green. And I'm going to flip it on the side that doesn't have anything just to blend that out a little bit. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So again, I'm taking that yellow-orange color, and I'm going to do the same here just to make that transition a little bit softer. And this is actually not going to be an all matte look. I'm going to use one of the shimmer shades here. And this is actually what I wanted to focus on with the video. So all of the shades here are very beautiful. They all stand and they hold their own. But I especially wanted to focus on the shade called Crystallized. So this one, I feel like if you look at the whole palette like a room, you know, it's like room decor, how you're supposed to pick textiles and colors that complement each other but give a little bit of contrast. I feel like the whole palette does that. And then typically when you're doing that with a room, not that I'm an expert by any means, but when you're putting like different colors in a room together, you want to find whether it's like the rug or the cushions or something that's going to have all the colors together to tie it all together. And I feel like that's what Crystallized is. It's that rug that just ties the whole room together. So this shade is so pretty. I put some swatches up for you guys as well, so you should be able to see those. But this shade, it has all of the colors from the palette, except for the super deep one. So it doesn't have like dendritic or plume, but it has basically all the other colors. So it has like a yellow, green, pink shift, or not pink, like an orangey shift. I'm going to bring down the light so you guys can see it better. Okay, there we go. So it has a really pretty, like a yellow to green to orange shift. And I feel like it ties the whole palette together because it goes with all of the colors in here. And depending on which one you put this over top, it can even be a little bit transforming. I'm going to put this on the center of the lid. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of that crystallized shade. And I'm going to apply it right in the center of the lid. And you're going to see what I mean by it goes with everything. It has orange and green and like, oh, it's just so pretty. I don't know if you guys can see it very well what it does. I'm going to try to capture it better as we go ahead. This palette feels like when you see palettes of people's accounts on Instagram where they kind of build their own palettes and they make very creative color stories. That's what this looks like. It's not something that I would have pictured or imagined, but it just goes so well together. And I don't typically wear like colorful looks like this, but I really wanted to showcase that crystallized shade and how it literally, like, it ties everything together and it looks so good. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here like this. I'm going to finish the rest of my face. and you're going to see the finished look. But spoiler alert, all I'm going to do, and I might come back to show you guys as I'm doing this, I'm going to try to mimic what I did here on the lower lid. So I will be applying that crystallized shade towards the center as well. And then on the inner corner, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Chalcedony and Silica as well. This one is super reflective. It's very, very pretty. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm going to make sure to put swatches. Again, it's super reflective. It has like gold to champagne shift. Oh, it's just so pretty. It has like silver in there as well. I can't explain it, but I'm going to go finish the rest of my face and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm in the process of doing my face, so don't be alarmed. This is a work in progress. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the lower lash line of my eye so that it matches the top and so that it looks a little bit softer and more cohesive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rounded out pencil brush and I'm going to go into I'm going to try to replicate on the bottom what I did on the top. So I'm going to take a little bit of volcanic. I'm going to tap off the excess because you don't want too much on the lower lash line. There's not a lot of space for you to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that connecting just to where that dark plum is. And I'm going to put it on the outer corner, bringing it inwards towards about the center of the eye. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to take that same shade again, volcanic. I'm going to put the same amount on the other side, outer half, bringing it inwards towards the center of the eye. Okay, already you can see that the soft, diffused look kind of makes everything look a little bit more cohesive, but we're not done yet, so I still look a little bit crazy. But I'm going to clean out that same brush, and now I'm going to go into the shade called, I'm going to do the one called Banded. I don't want to go too dark on the inner corner, so I'm going to add a little bit of Geode later, but right now I'm just going to go in with that lime green, and I'm going to put it on the inner lower portion. Again, dragging it in towards the center, just so it barely meets up with that volcanic shade we had applied. I'm doing that on both sides. This is actually a really good way for you to kind of hide any creasing you might have on the lower lid. Okay, now I'm going to do is I'm going to take the shade Agate. I wish the shade names were easier to pronounce. So I'm going to take the shade Agate and I'm going to blend that out on that lower half there where the pink, not the pink, that like, I don't know what color, like a salmon, where that was. And I'm going to meet that up with the Banded shade as well. And then lastly what I'm going to do is just with like a finer pencil brush. So I'm going to take the Singe e.l.f, again rounded out but very fine. I'm going to go into that shade Dendritic, which is like the deep plum. And I'm just going to go along the lower lash line, connecting it to that plum that's already existing. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then I'm going to repeat that with the green as well. So I've cleaned out that brush and now I'm going to go in with the shade Geode. I'm going to do it on the lower inner lash line. And now for the fun part, I'm going to take a pretty narrow, like a rectangular silicone applicator brush. So this one's pretty flat. And I'm going to make sure it's clean so it doesn't have any other shimmers or sparkles on it. And I'm going to take that shade Crystallized and I'm going to apply it on the lower lash line to mimic what we have on top. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Alright, so I'm actually going to go and finish the rest of the face and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so this is the final look. I hope you guys like it. I will say overall, I really like the Agate Temptation palette. I especially love that very pigmented, like minty shade, which I did put in the inner corner, as well as I put a little bit of silica and translucent just right inside the inner corner there. I can't not put a shimmer in the inner corner. It just makes all the difference for the looks, I think. Overall, I love this palette. It's so beautiful, but I will say something. I said that it was really unique, and it is. That doesn't change. Something that I did realize though, I kept thinking like, what does this look like? What does this look like? I've seen something like this, and I think I know why. I feel like the inspiration behind this palette was, and this is just completely me speculating, but I feel like there was some inspiration taken from two palettes that came out simultaneously from an indie brand called Ainsley Rain. Ainsley Rain? I can never pronounce it properly. But I have both of them. I don't have them with me right now. The only one I have is the Flourish palette. So if you're familiar with this color story, it does, so they were kind of sister palettes that came out, and this one has a little bit more neon colors to it. The other one, I'm going to pop in a picture right above it. But that one has a little bit more moody, murky, muted down colors. It also had some pops of bright colors as well. But I feel like there were colors taken from both palettes, and then they came together in this one. So this one could be like a distant relative. So I feel like this one could be a distant relative of those two palettes. I'm going to put in some swatches of some shades that I did find to be very similar from this, which is the Flourish palette. Like I said, I don't have the Flutter palette, which is the other one. But I suspect, I'd be willing to bet money that the minty shade that I really like from Agate Temptation is very, very similar to the one found in that palette as well. There's a couple different shades in here that I think would also match what's in that other palette. But if, you know, for whatever reason you liked these palettes that came out from Ainsley Rain and you no longer want to support the brand, or you missed out on it, or whatever the case may be, I think you're able to kind of find some relief and comfort in this palette because it does have a lot of those beautiful tones. So I do feel like there was some inspiration there, and now that I remember, I do recall Angelica really liking those two palettes, and especially this Dendric shade. It goes with everything in the sense that if you want to mute it down and make it just a little bit less bright and neon, for the other colors that you wear it with, you can pair it with Metamorphic. Or if you do want to add some depth to those really bright colors, you could pair it with Volcanic or Agates. So there's a lot of different combinations that you could do. In that Flutter palette, I think some of the shades that look similar would be Chalcedony? I can't pronounce that, okay? And Moss and Slice. So there is like those grungy, moody tones in there as well. Overall, I think that's really cool though. If that's the case, and if that's where the inspiration came from, I think it's really cool that there's more options out there in terms of what brands you want to support. So that's super great. Again, you guys will be able to see from the swatches that I inserted what the difference or similarities would be from the shades that I found in this palette. But overall with this one, no complaints. There is just one tiny complaint, I guess. So the shade here, Fire, I have beef with. I think the whole palette is beautiful. That's a nice shade too, but I mean, we're in 2025. I feel like personally, if I'm buying a palette that has a lot of shimmers and sparkles, I really want them to like take my breath away when I see them. And I feel like Fire just doesn't live up to the amount of like sparkle that the rest of the shades give. And I feel like if you put Volcanic and you add Gilded on top, I'm going to insert some swatches of that too, you can basically create a look that looks like Fire, but it has a little bit more spark to it. I hope you guys can catch what I'm saying, but pretty much I feel like this shade wasn't really necessary because it doesn't add to anything. If you pair Gilded and Volcanic, you can create basically a very similar shade. So I feel like something else could have been added to this, replacing this one. Perhaps something a little bit more on the neon side to kind of contrast branded. I don't know, just some thoughts, you know. Other than that, it is a very beautiful palette. There's really no fallout. Everything blends in amazingly, of course. I feel like Angelica does a fantastic job with her mattes. She knows them really well, so no complaints. I really love them. And You can even split this palette in two basically, so you have your like greens up here and then you have your oranges and purples down here. Again, crystallized ties everything together because this one goes with everything. You could put it over top of any of the shades and it kind of transforms it. If not contrasting, then it complements. It's a very beautiful shade. Something else that I will say is that the shade Fire, the best application is with the finger. I tried with a silicone applicator and it barely picked any up, and the brush wasn't really doing anything either, so the finger is going to be the best application for that shade Fire. I feel like every time I open up this palette, I get so inspired because, I mean, you could create such a beautiful look with these 4 shades or with these 4 shades, and you can even transform the shades too. So if you add, let's say, Banded on the edges of Plume, it's going to look very different and a lot brighter than if you do Moss on the edges of Plume, for example. So there's just so many looks that you can create with this palette. I really did like it. It's very fun every time I break in here, and the sparkles are so absolutely beautiful. So if you guys are thinking about this, I don't know that you would regret it, but if you do have those 2 palettes I mentioned from Ainsley Rain, I mean, obviously think about what you want to support too. If you have decluttered them from your collection for whatever reason and you kind of miss some of those types of tones, I think you would be very happy and satisfied with how they kind of come together in the Agate Temptation palette as well. And of course, just to mention, this palette does look super different than the first one that came out, which was Galactic Visitor, which I also have right here. Again, super different color story. I'm going to try to hold them up together, see if I can show you guys. But super different color story. It's kind of like comparing apples, spinach, and bananas. Like, it just doesn't go together in that way. I'm sure you could definitely mix and match the colors in here. But I do feel like overall this palette does have a slightly warmer tone than the Galactic Visitor. So those are somewhat, some of the shades are a little bit similar, but slightly cooler leaning. If you don't have one, I think you could justify getting the other one as well, just to add to the collection. I don't feel like there is enough overlap. Maybe just with the shades Peace, Cowgirl, and Dendrick. Those are the only ones. I'm going to put them up together here so you guys can see them. So these 3 might be the only ones that could be slightly similar, but again, everything else is pretty different. So if these are color stories that speak to you, I don't think you will regret getting either one. But overall, I really love this palette. Oh, there's so many looks that you can do with this. And again, this is just a really colorful one that I came up with today. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead and check that out in the description. I do have a couple more pictures that I've made with this palette. And if I have any reels coming up, I will try to add them into YouTube, as well as you'll be able to find them on Instagram. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. That way you can see what other videos I have coming up. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye!